The ventilation shaft rattled above Myra's head as she twisted the final bolt into place. Grease covered her hands, and her jumpsuit had 3 new tears from crawling through the tight maintenance tunnels of High Point 7. Nobody else wanted these jobs. The station's narrow passages were built for smaller species, and most humans complained about the cramped conditions. Mira didn't mind. Back home in the Australian outback, she'd squeeze through rock crevices to check water lines and crawled under rusted vehicles to make repairs. This was just another day's work. She wiped her forehead and checked her toolkit. The oxygen recycler hummed properly now, pushing clean air through the lower decks where the arena workers lived. 3 more repairs on her list before shift end. Mira pulled herself out of the access panel and landed lightly on the metal floor. The corridor stretched empty in both directions, lit by the pale blue emergency lights that never seemed bright enough. Her supervisor Ortho had warned her about this section. The restricted zones near the arena grounds were supposed to be off-limits during active events. But the work order clearly stated Deck 12, Section 7. Mira checked her datapad again. The coordinates matched. She grabbed her toolkit and headed down the corridor, following the blinking arrow on her screen. The walls changed as she walked. The plain metal panels gave way to polished stone, and the floor became smooth tile instead of grated steel. Mira slowed her pace. This didn't look like a maintenance area. Rich tapestries hung between support columns, showing battle scenes from a dozen different worlds. The air smelled different here, like incense, and something sharp she couldn't identify. She turned a corner and froze. The chamber before her was enormous, carved from dark rock that seemed to absorb light. In the center sat a creature that made her breath catch. He was massive, easily 9 feet tall, even in his seated position. Crimson scales covered his body, each one the size of her palm. His tail, thick as her torso, coiled around his legs. Yellow eyes with vertical slits opened slowly and fixed on her. Mira knew she should leave. Every instinct screamed at her to back away quietly. But her feet wouldn't move. She'd seen dangerous animals before. Crocodiles sunning themselves on riverbanks. Snakes coiled in the shade. You didn't run from them. Running triggered the chase response. You moved slowly, carefully, showing you weren't a threat. The creature rose to his full height. His head nearly touched the vaulted ceiling. Muscles rippled under those crimson scales as he stepped forward. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "You dare enter my meditation chamber." Myra's mind raced. Meditation chamber. That explained the incense and the tapestries. She'd stumbled into someone's private space. She raised her hands slowly, keeping them visible and empty except for the toolkit. "I'm sorry. I'm just maintenance. There was a work order for this section." The creature's eyes narrowed. He moved closer, each step deliberate and controlled. Mira could see the individual scales now, the way they overlapped like armor plating. She could smell him too, a scent like hot metal and earth. "I am Drakner, champion of the arena. I have defended my title for 3 cycles. Warriors from 15 worlds have fallen before me." He leaned down until his face was level with hers. "And you, a lowly technician, interrupt my sacred preparation?" Mira kept her voice steady. "I didn't know. I'll leave right now." "Too late." Drakner straightened and his tail lashed once, striking the stone floor with a crack that echoed through the chamber. "You have violated arena law. By entering this sacred space, you have issued a challenge whether you intended to or not." "A challenge? I'm not a fighter. I fix air systems." Drakner's laugh was harsh and cold. "Arena law does not care about your profession. You are here. You have been seen. By tradition, I now offer you 2 choices. Accept my challenge and face me in the arena, or accept exile from this station." Myra's stomach dropped. Exile meant losing her job. Losing her job meant no credits sent home. Her family depended on those credits. Her grandmother's medical bills, her brother's school fees, the loan on their water purification system. Without her income, they'd lose everything. "How long do I have to decide?" "You have already decided by remaining here." Drakner moved to a panel on the wall and pressed his clawed hand against it. "I have registered the challenge. The arena master will contact you within the hour. Prepare yourself, human. I will show mercy and make your death quick." He turned away from her, dismissing her presence as if she'd already ceased to matter. Mira backed out of the chamber, her mind spinning. She'd faced death before. Boxed jellyfish in the shallows, their tentacles trailing poison. Inland taipans striking from the grass, their venom enough to kill 100 people. Brown snakes, funnel web spiders, saltwater crocodiles that could tear a person in half. But those were animals. They killed to eat or to defend themselves. They didn't challenge you to formal combat in front of thousands of spectators. Mira made her way back through the corridors in a daze. Her datapad buzzed. A message from Ortho appeared on the screen, just 3 words in all capital letters. "Get here now." She found him in the maintenance office, his furred face pale beneath his orange markings. Ortho was a Fenral, barely 4 feet tall, with ears that swiveled independently and a nose that twitched when he was nervous. Right now, both ears were flat against his skull, and his nose hadn't stopped moving. "What did you do?" he asked. "I followed the work order. I didn't know it was his private chamber." Ortho pulled up a holographic display. Arena statistics scrolled past, showing fight records and betting odds. Drachner's name appeared at the top of every list. 17 victories, 17 deaths, 0 defeats. He's killed every opponent he's ever faced, Ortho said quietly. Species twice your size. Trained warriors with decades of experience. He looked at her with something like pity. "Accept exile. Leave tonight. Your family will understand." Mira thought about her grandmother, who'd taught her to survive in the harshest place on Earth, who'd shown her how to read the land, how to move through danger, how to stay alive when everything around you wanted you dead. "No," she said. "I accept the challenge." Mira sat cross-legged on the floor of her tiny quarters, a datapad balanced on her knee. The station's public database scrolled past her eyes, page after page of biological data on the Kryn species. She'd been reading for 3 hours straight, ignoring the messages that kept flooding her communication system. Everyone wanted to talk to her. Arena officials, betting agents, even a reporter from the Galactic News Network. She ignored them all. The Kryn evolved on a heavy-gravity world with a thick atmosphere. Their scales provided natural armor against predators and environmental hazards. Their bone structure was reinforced with mineral deposits that made them incredibly difficult to injure. Their muscle density was 3 times that of baseline humans. Mira zoomed in on an anatomical diagram. There, the nerve clusters at the jaw junction. The soft tissue behind the knee scales where flexibility required a gap in the armor. The way their inner ear connected to their balance system through exposed channels at the base of the skull. Every species had weak points. Her grandmother had taught her that. Even the saltwater crocodiles, with their armored hides and crushing bite force, had soft palates and eye sockets. Even the boxed jellyfish, nearly invisible and lethally poisonous, could be avoided if you understood their behavior patterns. Drachner wasn't a monster. He was just another creature shaped by his environment. And every environment left vulnerabilities that a knock on her door interrupted her reading. Mira closed the datapad and stood. Through the small viewport, she could see a human man in an expensive suit. His hair was graying at the temples, and he carried himself with the careful posture of someone used to being watched. She opened the door. Mira-chun, the man asked. "Yes. Ambassadeur David Ross, Terrain Diplomatique Corps. May I come in?" Mira stepped aside. Her quarters barely had room for 1 person, let alone 2, but Ross squeezed in and the door hissed shut behind him. "You don't have to do this," he said without preamble. "I've been in contact with the Arena administration. They're willing to waive the exile requirement if you make a formal apology. They told me exile was mandatory. It was, until I pointed out that forcing a Terran citizen into a death match might complicate our trade agreements." Ross smiled thinly. Suddenly they became flexible. Mira considered this. An apology would save her life. She could keep working, keep sending credits home, avoid getting torn apart by a 9-foot warrior in front of 40,000 screaming spectators. What would the apology require? Public statement. You'd admit to trespassing in a sacred space. You'd acknowledge disrespecting Kryn traditions. You'd formally request Drachner's forgiveness. Ross pulled out his own datapad. I have the statement prepared. You just need to record it. And Drachner? Would he accept it? He'd have to. Arena law allows for apology as an alternative to combat if both parties agree. Mira thought about her grandmother again. The old woman had survived 60 years in the outback through strength, sure, but mostly through pride. She never backed down. She never apologized for being where she had a right to be. She taught Mira that some things mattered more than safety. No, Mira said, that Ross's composure cracked slightly. You understand what you're refusing? Drachner has killed 17 opponents. Trained soldiers, professional fighters, people who actually knew how to fight. I know. Then why? Mira met his eyes. Because I followed a legitimate work order to do my job. I'm not apologizing for that. And I'm not teaching my family that you bow your head whenever someone bigger tries to intimidate you. Ross was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. Your grandmother must be a hell of a woman. She is. All right, I can't stop you. He moved toward the door, then paused. Would you accept some advice? From someone who knows how to fight, from someone who knows how to survive. There's a difference. Ross tapped his datapad. Kryn warriors train from childhood. They learn honor codes and battle forms, and how to read their opponent's movements. They're very good at traditional combat. And you're not a traditional fighter. Don't try to be one. Use what you know. After Ross left, Mira returned to her research. She pulled up videos of Drachner's previous fights. The first 3 were hard to watch. He moved with brutal efficiency, using his war staff to break bones and crush organs. His opponents fought bravely, but bravery meant nothing against someone who outweighed you by 200 pounds and had natural armor. The 4th fight was different. His opponent, a serpentine creature called a Silith, actually landed several hits. Drachner's left side favored slightly after one particular strike. Mira rewound the footage and watched again. There, the Silith's blade had found the gap between neck scales and shoulder scales. Just for a moment, Drachner had stumbled. She made a note in her datapad. The door chimed again. This time it was Ortho, carrying a small bag. I can't talk you out of this, he asked. No. He sighed and set the bag down. Arena regulations. You're allowed to request personal items for the preparation chamber. I brought what I could. Mira opened the bag. Inside were 3 bottles of water, a clean towel, and a small photo frame. She picked up the frame and felt her throat tighten. It showed her grandmother, standing in front of their homestead, squinting into the sun. Thank you, she managed. Ortho's ears drooped. I've worked on this station for 12 years. I've seen a lot of fights. I've never seen anyone survive their first match with Drachner. He turned to leave, then stopped. But I've also never seen anyone study their opponent the way you're doing. Maybe that matters. After he left, Mira set the photo on her small shelf and lay down on her bunk. Tomorrow the fight would happen. Tomorrow she'd step into that arena and face something designed by evolution to kill. But evolution had designed her too, just differently. She closed her eyes and ran through what she'd learned. Nerve clusters, balance points, weak spots, the human brain's ability to recognize patterns and exploit them. That's what had kept her ancestors alive on Earth. Not strength, not armor, just the ability to think, to adapt, to find the angle that nobody else saw. Sleep came eventually, and with it, dreams of home. The roar of 40,000 voices hit Mira like a physical wave as the arena doors opened. She'd never heard anything so loud. Even the cyclones back home, with their howling winds and thunder, couldn't match this wall of sound. Every species in the sector seemed to be represented in the crowd. Beings with fur, scales, feathers, and stranger coverings filled the tiered seats rising into the shadows above. An arena attendant, a gray-skinned creature with 4 arms, gestured for her to wait. The parade had to happen first. Tradition demanded it. Drachner emerged from the opposite entrance to thunderous applause. He'd painted his scales with gold pigment that caught the lights and made him look even larger than before. His war staff, a 12-foot length of reinforced bone carved with symbols, rested across his shoulders. He raised it high and the crowd's volume doubled. He began his walk around the arena's perimeter, acknowledging different sections of the audience. Some threw flowers. Others waved banners bearing his crest. He moved with absolute confidence, a champion who'd never known defeat. "Your turn," the attendant said to Mira. She stepped onto the arena floor. The sand crunched under her boots, white and fine like the beaches near her home. The noise didn't diminish for her entrance. Instead, it changed. The cheers became confused murmurs. She heard laughter from some sections, pity from others. Mira walked the perimeter as tradition required. She didn't wave or acknowledge the crowd. She kept her eyes moving, studying the space. The arena was circular, maybe 200 feet across. The sand would shift under sudden movements. The walls were smooth stone, 15 feet high, topped by an energy barrier that shimmered faintly blued. In the diplomatic section, she spotted Ambassador Ross. Next to him sat an elderly creature she didn't recognize, covered in white fur with enormous eyes. The creature was watching her with interest rather than pity. The parade complete, both fighters moved to the center. Celine, the arena master, descended from her observation platform on a gravitic disc. She was a Voth, her skin covered in overlapping plates that clicked softly when she moved. Her 4 eyes scanned the crowd before settling on the fighters. "Ancient tradition brings us here," Celine announced, her voice amplified across the arena. "A challenge has been issued and accepted. Arena law will be satisfied." She gestured to Drakner. "Champion, you may choose one weapon or fight unarmed." Drakner hefted his war staff. "I choose my ancestral weapon, as is my right." Celine turned to Mira. "Challenger, you may choose one weapon or fight unarmed." The crowd leaned forward. Mira knew what they expected. A desperate choice. A plasma blade maybe, or a shock staff. Something to give her even the slimmest chance against Drakner's size and strength. "I fight unarmed," Mira said clearly. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Gasps. Shouts. Someone screamed that she was committing suicide. The betting terminals around the arena flickered as odds shifted. 5,000 to 1 became 8,000 to 1. Drakner stared at her. "You refuse even the protection of a weapon? Your courage exceeds your wisdom, human." "Maybe," Mira replied, that Celine's expression was unreadable. "The choice is made and witnessed. Fighters, take your positions." Mira backed toward her side of the arena. Drakner moved to his. The distance between them was perhaps 60 feet. She rolled her shoulders and shook out her hands, the way her grandmother had taught her before checking traps or tracking dangerous game. In the stands, Professor Yinton leaned toward Ambassador Ross. "Does she understand what she's doing?" "I hope so," Ross said quietly. "Because I don't." Celine raised her hand. "The match begins when my hand falls. It ends when one fighter cannot continue or yields." She paused. "There will be no mercy shown. No surrender accepted once blood is drawn. This is arena law." Drakner began his war dance. He spun his staff, the bone weapon whistling through the air. He roared and beat his chest with one clawed hand. The crowd roared with him, caught up in the spectacle. This was what they'd come to see. The champion in his element. The weak challenger about to learn her place. Mira watched the dance. She noted how he favored his right side. How his left leg planted slightly wider than his right. How he blinked when the staff passed close to his face. A tiny flinch he probably didn't know he had. The war dance ended. Drakner fixed his yellow eyes on her and spoke across the distance. "I will make this quick, little creature. You have courage to face me." Mira surprised herself by smiling. "You demanded a true battle. I'm here to give you one." Something in her tone made Drakner's eyes narrow. Just for a moment, uncertainty crossed his face. Then it was gone, replaced by cold determination. Celine's hand fell. Drakner charged immediately. The sand exploded under his feet as he covered the distance with terrifying speed. The war staff came up, aimed for Myra's head. A killing blow, quick and clean, just as he'd promised. Mira didn't move. Not yet. The crowd was screaming. Some had already turned away, unable to watch. Ambassador Ross gripped the railing in front of him, his knuckles white. Professor Yinton's enormous eyes were fixed on Mira, watching her stillness, point 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet. The war staff descended in a perfect arc, Drakner's full strength behind it. Enough force to shatter stone. Mira shifted her weight. The movement was small, economical, precise. The staff passed 3 inches from her head, close enough that she felt the wind of its passage. Drakner's momentum carried him forward, his balance committed to the strike he'd expected to land. Mira stepped in. Her hand came up, fingers rigid, palm flat. She struck at the exact point where Drakner's jaw met his neck, where her research had shown the nerve cluster lay exposed. The impact looked gentle, almost like a pat that Drakner's entire left side went dead. The war staff fell from his suddenly nerveless hand. His leg buckled. His yellow eyes went wide with shock and confusion. He tried to recover, tried to compensate with his right side, but his balance was already gone. Mira didn't pause. She swept his weak leg, the one with the soft tissue gap behind the knee. As he fell, she delivered a second precise strike to his temple. Not a punch, just a tap. Perfectly placed. Drakner hit the sand hard and didn't move. The entire arena went silent. Mira stood over the fallen champion, breathing normally, not even winded. Total elapsed time, for 0.3 seconds. The silence stretched for 5 full seconds before chaos erupted. 40,000 voices exploded at once, not in cheers or boos, but in complete confusion. The referee, a 4-armed Gresh named Torval, stood frozen at the edge of the arena, his mouth opening and closing without sound as Celine's platform descended rapidly. She rushed to Drakner's side, her plates clicking frantically. Medical drones emerged from panels in the arena walls, scanning the fallen champion with blue light. Mira stepped back, giving them space, her hands at her sides. "What did you do?" Celine demanded. "What weapon did you use?" "None. Just my hand." "That's impossible. He's unconscious. His left side is completely unresponsive." One of the medical drones chirped. A holographic display appeared above Drakner's body, showing his vital signs. Heart rate elevated but steady. Breathing normal. No broken bones. No internal bleeding. No chemical traces. No energy weapon residue. "He's alive," the drone announced in a flat, mechanical voice. Temporary nerve disruption in the left cervical cluster. Blunt impact trauma to right temple resulted in brief neural cascade. No permanent damage detected. Estimated recovery time, 20 minutes. Celine looked from the display to Mira to her unconscious hand and back again. 20 minutes? He should be dead. That blow should have killed him or done nothing at all. "I didn't want to kill him," Mira said simply. "I wanted to stop him." Up in the stands, Professor Yintin was laughing. The sound was high and musical, completely inappropriate for the moment. Ambassador Ross stared at him. "You knew," Ross said. "You knew this would happen." "I suspected," Yintin replied, wiping his enormous eyes. "Do you know what a death world is, Ambassador? A planet classified as extremely dangerous to life." "No, no, no. That's the simple definition. The real meaning is deeper." Yintin pulled up his own datapad, his thin fingers dancing across the display. A death world doesn't produce one kind of predator. It produces thousands. Different strategies, different attack patterns, different vulnerabilities. He showed Ross a screen filled with earth fauna. "Look at this. Crocodiles that crush, snakes that poison, spiders that paralyze, jellyfish that burn, birds that claw, mammals that charge. And this is just from one continent. I don't understand what this has to do with Mira. Everything. Deathworld survivors don't evolve to be stronger than their predators. They evolve to understand them, to find the weakness, to exploit it." Yintin gestured toward the arena floor. "Your species' greatest advantage isn't physical. It's cognitive, pattern recognition, analytical thinking, the ability to study and adapt." Down on the arena floor, Torval finally found his voice. "I declare this match. I declare." He looked at Celine desperately. "Victory by knockout," Celine said, her voice hollow. "Mira Chun is the winner." The crowd exploded again. This time the noise was different. Arguments broke out in a dozen languages. Spectators demanded replays on the massive screens suspended above the arena. Betting terminals crashed as winners and losers tried to cash out simultaneously. Mira walked back toward the exit, wanting nothing more than to leave. An arena guard blocked her path. "You must remain for the investigation," he said. "Investigation of what? Possible cheating, use of illegal technology, or substances." Mira sighed and sat down on the sand to wait. Behind her, the medical team loaded Drakner onto a transport platform. His scales had lost their golden sheen, covered now in sand and defeat. The investigation took 2 hours. Mira submitted to 4 different scans. They checked her body for chemical enhancements, cybernetic implants, genetic modifications, and energy field generators. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. She was exactly what she appeared to be, a human woman with no augmentation beyond what evolution had provided. They analyzed the arena's sensor recordings from 17 different angles. Slow-motion footage showed her movements in excruciating detail. The slight weight shift, the precise angle of her strike, the exact placement of her second blow. Every movement calculated, every impact intentional. "How did you know where to hit him?" one investigator asked. "I researched Kryn anatomy. The station database has detailed biological records for every registered species. But knowing where the nerve cluster is located and actually hitting it under combat conditions are very different things." Mira thought about tracking inland taipans through tall grass, about watching for the flicker of movement that meant a brown snake was close, about reading water for the ripples that indicated a crocodile. "I practice hitting small targets," she said. Eventually, they had to let her go. Every test came back negative. Every recording showed the same thing. A human using nothing but knowledge and precision to defeat a superior physical opponent. Mira made it 3 steps outside the investigation chamber before the reporters found her. They swarmed from every direction, shoving recording devices in her face and shouting questions in languages she didn't understand. "How does it feel to be champion? Will you defend your title? What training method did you use? Are all humans capable of this?" Security pushed through the crowd, led by Ambassador Ross. He guided her toward a private transport pod while the guards held back the press. "Come on, I'll get you somewhere safe." The pod lifted off, rising above the crowd. Through the transparent canopy, Mira could see High Point 7 stretching in all directions. The arena district with its massive, circular structure. The commercial zones with their bright lights. The residential sectors where she'd lived quietly for 8 months. "That was incredible," Ross said. "That was necessary. Most people wouldn't see a difference." Mira watched the station scroll past below. "Most people don't come from Earth." Ross smiled. "Fair point." He checked his datapad. "You should know, you've received 47 fight offers in the last hour. Every arena in this sector wants to book you. 3 crime syndicates want to hire you as an enforcer. And at least 1 military academy wants you to teach their combat instructors. I'm a maintenance worker." "You were a maintenance worker. Now you're the person who beat Drakner in 4 seconds. For 0.3 seconds. Even better." Ross leaned back. "What are you going to do?" Mira thought about her grandmother, who'd spent 60 years fixing water pumps and maintaining solar panels and teaching children how to survive. Who'd never been famous. Who'd never been important to anyone except the people she loved. "I'm going to finish my shift," Mira said. "I still have 3 repairs on my list." Ross laughed. "I don't think your supervisor is going to make you fix ventilation systems anymore." The pod descended toward the maintenance district. Through the window, Mira could see Ortho waiting outside the office, surrounded by a crowd of workers. When they spotted her, they started cheering. Maybe some things had changed after all. 6 days passed before Drakner found her. Mira was replacing a coolant pump in the lower engineering deck when she felt the vibration of heavy footsteps. She didn't need to turn around. Only one creature on the station moved with that particular weight and rhythm. "I know you're there," she said, not looking up from her work. "I would speak with you." Mira tightened a final connection and set down her tools. She turned slowly, keeping her movements non-threatening. Drakner stood in the corridor, his crimson scales clean but unpainted. He wore simple clothing instead of his arena gear. His war staff was absent. All right. They stared at each other for a long moment. Mira noticed details she'd missed during the fight. A scar across his left shoulder. A chip in one of his teeth. The way his eyes, those vertical slitted yellow eyes, showed intelligence and thought, not just animal rage. I have come to understand what happened, Drachner said finally. The medical staff explained the nerve strike. How you targeted a weakness in my species' physiology that we did not know existed. I didn't know if it would work, Miro admitted. The database only showed the anatomy. I couldn't be sure a human hand strike would generate enough force to trigger the response. But you tried anyway. I didn't have better options. Drachner's tail swished once, then stilled. I have fought warriors from 15 worlds. Species with natural weapons. Species with armor thicker than mine. Species with venom and bioelectric capabilities. I defeated them all through strength and skill. You're a good fighter. No, I was an arrogant fighter. There is a difference. He moved closer, and Mira forced herself not to step back. You gave me exactly what I demanded. A true battle. I simply did not realize that true battles are not always won by the strongest. Mira relaxed slightly. What do you want? To learn. If you would teach me. That surprised her. Teach you what? How to lose. Drachner's mouth pulled back in what might have been a smile. His teeth were impressive. How to see. You studied my species. You found our weakness. You exploited it with precision I did not think possible. This is a warrior's skill I lack. I'm not a warrior. Then what are you? Mira considered the question. Back home, she'd been a survivor. Someone who fixed things when they broke and found solutions to problems. The arena fight hadn't changed that. It just revealed it. I'm someone who pays attention, she said. Over the following weeks, an unlikely partnership formed. Drachner would find Mira during her off hours, and they would go to the station's gym facilities. Not to fight, but to study. Mira showed him the biological databases she'd used. How to research an opponent's physiology. How to identify weak points in any creature's design. In return, Drachner taught her the things he knew. Combat philosophy from his homeworld. How to read an opponent's intentions from their stance. The mental discipline required to remain calm under pressure. Your people trained from childhood, Mira said during one session. How did you learn all this? The same way you learned to survive on Earth. Necessity. Drachner settled into a cross-legged position, his tail curled around him. My world has predators too. Not as many varieties as yours, but each one deadly. We learn to fight or we die young. So we're not that different. No, but your world taught you to think first. Mine taught me to strike first. He tilted his head. Perhaps both approaches have value. Word of their training sessions spread through the station. Other species began to observe, at first secretly, then openly. A Voth merchant asked if she could watch. A Quillith scientist took notes. Even some humans from other sections came to see what Mira was teaching the former champion. Ortho approached her one evening after her shift. His ears were up and alert, his nose still. Celine wants to meet with you. The arena master? What? She has a proposal. She asked me to bring you to her office. Celine's office overlooked the main arena floor. Through the wide windows, Mira could see maintenance crews preparing for the next event. The arena master gestured to a chair. You've created quite a stir, Mira-chun. I was just trying to keep my job. And instead, you've revolutionized how we think about combat. Celine pulled up holographic displays showing charts and graphs. Arena attendance is up 40%. Not for the violence, but for the education. People want to understand what you did. I studied and got lucky. Luck doesn't win fights in 4 seconds. Celine dismissed the displays. I want to offer you a position, not as a fighter, but as an instructor. You and Drachner would run a training program here at the arena, teaching others the principles of tactical analysis and adaptive combat. I'm not qualified to teach. You defeated the greatest warrior in this sector using nothing but knowledge. I'd say you're overqualified. Celine leaned forward. The pay would be triple your current salary. You'd have access to the best facilities. And you'd be preventing fights instead of participating in them. Mira thought about that, about the younger workers on the station who might face challenges like she had. about species learning to understand each other's capabilities instead of testing them through violence. I need to keep my maintenance certification, she said. I like fixing things. Celine smiled. Done. The training program began small. Just a dozen students from 6 different species. Mira and Drakner taught them together, combining human analytical thinking with Kryn warrior discipline. They studied anatomy. They practiced precision movements. They learned to recognize and respect each other's natural abilities and limitations. Professor Yintin attended every session, taking copious notes. After the first week, he published a preliminary paper, Deathworld Adaptation: How Earth Survival Strategies Translate to Galactic Combat. The paper went viral across academic networks. Military academies requested copies. Diplomatic corps studied it. Even species who'd never heard of Earth wanted to understand the principles it described. Ambassador Ross visited the training facility on its 3rd week. He found Mira demonstrating pressure points on a volunteer, a nervous Finral who'd agreed to help with the lesson. Careful pressure here disrupts the nerve signal temporarily, Mira explained to the class. Too much force can cause permanent damage. The goal is control, not destruction. After class, Ross pulled her aside. You've accomplished something remarkable. You've changed how the galaxy thinks about humanity. I just showed them we're worth paying attention to. That's more than most ambassadors achieve in a lifetime. He smiled. Your grandmother would be proud. Mira hoped he was right. Mira woke to find a message waiting on her datapad. The sender was listed simply as home. Her heart jumped as she opened it, and her grandmother's weathered face appeared on the screen. Heard you had some trouble up there, the old woman said, her voice crackling across the light years. Ortho sent me a message. Said you fought some giant lizard man and won. That true? Mira smiled despite herself. It's a little more complicated than that. It always is. You handle it the way I taught you. Yes, Gran. The old woman nodded with satisfaction. Good. Don't let them make you into something you're not. You're Chun. We survive by being smart, not by being mean. A pause. You eating enough? You look thin. I'm fine, Gran. I sent some money back. Tell them to keep it. You've done enough for us. The message ended. Mira sat for a moment, feeling the weight of those words. She'd come to this station to support her family. Somehow, in trying to keep her job, she'd found something else entirely. 6 months after the fight, the training facility had expanded to occupy 3 levels of the arena complex. Over 200 students from 40 different species cycled through the programs. Some came to learn combat techniques. Others came to understand alien physiology. All of them left with a better understanding of how to avoid conflicts rather than win them. Mira stood at the window of the main training hall, watching Drakner lead a class through balance exercises. His teaching style was direct and demanding, but fair. Students respected him not just for his past victories, but for his willingness to admit he'd had more to learn. That a commotion at the entrance caught her attention. 3 humans entered, young and confident, wearing the insignia of a private security company. They scanned the room and spotted Mira. You Mira-chan? The leader asked. Yes. We're from Apex Security Solutions. We want to hire you as a combat instructor for our personnel. Name your price. Mira shook her head. I'm not for hire. We'll double whatever the arena is paying you. I'm not interested. The man's confidence faltered. Look, we saw the footage. What you did to that Kryn could revolutionize human security throughout the sector. We need someone who can teach our people those techniques. The techniques aren't secret. The databases are public. Anyone can research alien physiology. But you made it work. You turned theory into practice. Mira gestured to the training floor below. And now I'm teaching dozens of species how to do the same thing. For free if they can't afford the standard fees. Why would I limit that knowledge to one security company? The men left dissatisfied. They weren't the first recruiters and wouldn't be the last. Mira had received offers from military contractors, arena promoters, even a few criminal organizations that didn't bother hiding their intentions. She'd refused them all. That evening, she met with Drakner in the small office they shared. He was reviewing applications for the next training cycle. We have a problem, he said. What kind? The good kind. We have 300 applicants for 50 slots. And look at this. He showed her a list of names. Government officials, military officers, corporate executives. They all want to learn. We can't teach everyone. No, but we can expand. Open training facilities on other stations. Share the curriculum with qualified instructors. Drackner leaned back, his chair creaking under his weight. This has grown beyond us, Mira. What began as your survival has become something larger. Professor Yintin arrived an hour later, practically vibrating with excitement. He spread datapads across their desk, each showing different charts and graphs. My research has been accepted by the Galactic Council's Science Directorate. They want to fund a comprehensive study of Deathworld evolution and its applications to conflict resolution. He looked up, his enormous eyes bright. They want you to be the primary case study. What does that mean? Mira asked. Interviews, demonstrations, possibly a tour of council facilities across the sector. You'd be presenting to the galaxy's leading scientists and military strategists. I'm not a scientist. No, but you're proof that Deathworld survival strategies have applications beyond simple combat. You've shown that understanding can defeat strength. That knowledge can overcome size. That's revolutionary. Drackner rumbled a laugh. She's shown that humans are more dangerous than we thought. That's what makes everyone nervous. Dangerous, yes, but not in the way we feared. Yindin pulled up an image showing galactic conflict statistics. Look at this. In regions where your training methods have been adopted, violent confrontations have decreased by 32%. People are solving disputes through understanding rather than force. That can't all be because of what I did. Of course not. But you started a shift in thinking. You demonstrated that there are alternatives to traditional power structures. A chime interrupted them. Ambassador Ross appeared on the communication screen, looking tired but pleased. Mira, I have news. The Terran Council has approved funding for 20 training facilities based on your model. We'll be placing them on stations throughout human-controlled space. 20 facilities? Just a start. If they succeed, we'll expand further. Ross smiled. You've given us something valuable. A way to show the galaxy that humans contribute more than just labor and resource extraction. We can teach. We can innovate. We can bridge gaps between species. After the call ended, Mira walked to the window again. Below, students were finishing their evening session. A Kryn was helping a Fenral adjust their stance. A Voth was explaining anatomy to a human. A Quillith was demonstrating precision strikes to a mixed group of a dozen species. 6 months ago, she just wanted to fix air systems and send credits home. Now she'd somehow become a symbol of human adaptability. The thought was terrifying and humbling in equal measure. Overwhelmed, Drackner asked, joining her at the window. A little. That's wisdom. Only fools are never overwhelmed. They watched in comfortable silence as the students filed out, chatting and laughing across species barriers that had seemed insurmountable before. Do you regret it? Drackner asked. That day you walked into my meditation chamber. Mira considered the question honestly. The fear, the fighting, the sudden attention and responsibility, but also the friendships formed, the violence prevented, the understanding created. No, she said finally. I don't regret it. Neither do I. Drackner's tail swished thoughtfully. You gave me a greater gift than defeat. You gave me the chance to learn. The facility lights dimmed as night cycle began. Tomorrow would bring new students, new challenges, new opportunities to teach what she'd learned. But for now, Mira stood in the quiet and thought about home. About her grandmother who'd taught her to survive through wisdom rather than strength. About how those lessons, learned under Earth's harsh sun, had found new meaning among the stars. Her datapad chimed with another message. This one was from her family. Her brother had been accepted to the engineering program he'd wanted. Her grandmother's medical bills were paid in full. They were safe. They were secure. Mira smiled and composed a simple reply. Everything here is good. Tell Gran I'm eating enough. She looked out at the stars beyond the station's hull and felt, for the first time since arriving at High Point 7, that she was exactly where she was supposed to be.